All right. Folks, welcome to part 2 of episode 11 with Imogen Hobbs. I've got no doubt that all of you are as excited as I am because part 1 actually, in the best way, it frustrated me at the end because we had to go and it felt like we were just diving into so many epic topics. And so I was kind of bummed that we had to do that, but also that's the way that the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I couldn't be more excited for part 2. So I'll try my best to not overlap from anything that we spoke about yesterday. It is a possibility. I don't know if that will happen, but give us some wiggle room and some grace just in case it does. And stoked to be back. Imogen, stoked to have you back on the show.
I'm stoked to continue this conversation. It was so epic yesterday, so we're in part 1.
Yeah.
I'm excited.
It's the sequel. It's very exciting. All right. We kind of kicked off, fill in the gaps here. I feel like we kicked off, we were talking about masculinity, we were talking about the phrase toxic masculinity, healing the masculine, we were talking about how the language that is probably isn't conducive to inviting men in to heal and want to be better men and on the side of who they could be as opposed to who they are. I think we were talking about towards the end there, like, you know, people sharing where they're at with people that haven't got the skill set and what it takes to really hold space for someone and instead just take on their kind of stuff, their trauma, and then not know what to do with it. That felt like that was a great point actually. What else? Can you think of anything else?
We talked about equality versus balance.
We did.
That was a big one.
Yep.
And we opened up a little bit about shamanism.
We
much.
did.
I think you pretty much covered it though. I think that last part was around, you know, like young people being able to, knowing who to talk to and who to go to and what support they need to be able to move them forward and who they're looking up to and what their role models look like.
Totally.
Yeah.
Fantastic. I think for me, I walked away with a question that I'd love to open this up with. Would you say like the suppression of men's emotions, the stigma that is, we spoke about kind of having to be strong and tough and look like we've got it all figured out, the lack of direction. Obviously this isn't for all men, but we're just speaking to kind of what we spoke to yesterday. Do you think that is coming from the wounded masculine or the wounded feminine? Imogen's cat's just rocked in. She's keen to get amongst the potty.
Lou just having a chill. I think that yes. Is your question that because there's so much caught up in the wounding that restricts the ability to see direction and vision and goals and where we're going and whether that stems from the masculine or the feminine part of a person? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I guess ultimately, yes. I would say, to put it really simply, like where specifically does this stem from? Is it stemming from the apple doesn't fall far from the tree and how we received love and were shown love from our father and our mother dictates how we, you know, operate and behave in society? Or is it coming from mothers, women, being more in their masculine and less in their feminine?
I think this is a really fascinating question and topic. I really do. And I don't know that I've ever explored it in this way, so let's go there together. I think a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B. I don't think that in society we've been taught to chase dreams or to think about what it is that we could do to be better. There's a song that is like, you know, like, I can't remember the words or anything, but it talks about, you know, like when you're young, you get encouraged to like dream of what you want to be when you grow up, and then when you get to university or you get to college or whatever that looks like, then it's like, well, what are you going to do seriously? And that dream is never encouraged. And I I would believe that mothers stuck in their masculine are sitting in a place of control, which is fear, which is ultimately what I see a lot of this coming back to is poverty scarcity. And I have, which is loneliness and lack as well. It's a nice team that comes along for the journey, and isolation is in that, and limiting beliefs and all of those things around like we can't create something bigger, so we stay in the comfort and we stay in fear. And when mothers are trying to maintain control of the family unit because they're in their masculine and they're in that fear state, then you're not encouraged to dream in that place because they don't have really the capacity. Not that I've seen, I'm not saying like all, but they don't really have the capacity to encourage the break free, do something bigger, chase your dreams, because it's we've got to maintain this, we've got to keep everyone safe, we've got to keep it structured, we've got to keep a hold on all of this so it doesn't all fall apart. And the limitation is, if I chase my dream, if I'm the cycle breaker of my family and I'm chasing this thing, then I'm challenging everything that everyone is that's come before me, which is the apple doesn't fall far from the tree as well.
Sure.
And so when we're following that cycle breaker mentality, we are literally triggering their fears on a regular basis, which is going to keep pushing you to be smaller. And when you're young and you're trying to launch for that dream or that vision, or you believe in something, if the people around you that are the people that you're looking up to have a biased opinion of what safety and risk look like, then you're going to be encouraged to scrap that idea because it's not safe and it's too great a risk.
Follow the herd, do what's easy, do what's safe.
Be manageable.
Yeah.
Be
White
small.
picket fence,
Yeah.
9 to 5, nothing else.
Sally down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting, actually. I feel, on a quick side note, you know, anyone that follows their heart and can do the things that they're truly passionate about, I don't believe that for those people a midlife crisis exists. I think they get to 40 and go, this is pretty good. I quite like this. But for those that stay trapped, you know, in that kind of safety box where their parents were like, you've got to do this, and their friends are like, you've got to do that, and you can't do anything else, and they've spent their entire life's work, you know, working in the high-rise job, or you know, doing the thing that their father wished they could do, and or maintain the family business or something like this, where it's just not actually singing to your heart's desires, then my felt sense is that those people will get to 40 and go, oh my God, I'm buying a Harley Davidson, I'm getting the fuck out of here. So I think it's important to remember that whenever people are sharing that kind of at you, I suppose, I do think it comes from a place of love, but also a place of fear, because your parents don't want you to fail at all. So there's the fear side of it, but then what's underneath that is that we love you, and if this fails, then where will you be?
Yeah.
You know?
And this was probably one of the conversations that kicked up a lot of dust, as you would call it, that triggering sense of having people to confront themselves in I think it's like week 9 of my 10-week program with the guys. It kicked up a lot for a lot of them because we talked about generational inheritance and legacy and what that looks like and what legacy actually means for men. And that's, for lots of people, you know, it's like, I want to have children so that's my legacy. But we had a big conversation around, you know, legacy doesn't actually look like putting that responsibility on your children, but also this piece that comes through, which is to what you just said, of parents going, well, I couldn't do it, so you have to. And that's making your child responsible for your life and all of the things that you couldn't do, which is putting an extra layer of that conditioning in that says, negate your dreams and live mine because I never had the guts to, and I never had the courage to take those risks and follow that line that of my dream, of my vision. And what we're working towards now is pulling these men into this place where their vision is so important, because they aren't here just to be fathers. They were here to do something else as well. And I don't believe that anyone's here just to be a parent. And so it's looking at separating that out, because what we see a lot of is that the children grow up and then they leave home, and then the parents are like, wait, what but what do I do now? You know, like now that I'm not a parent, and that's one of the rites of passage pieces for both men and women that we don't talk about in society and that we don't facilitate is what does it look like when the children leave the home? And we see the same thing with retirement, right? People finish their job and they go, oh, now I get to have my life. And men die quite soon after that because they don't know who they are, they don't know what they are, and they don't know what it is that they want to do. But also partnerships have become so disconnected, which is one of the reasons why I love what I do and why it's important to me, is because partnerships have become so disconnected. We're just in this state of go about our lives, do the thing, be responsible, achieve the goals, raise the family, you know, get to retirement. And then people realize when they're in each other's company all the time, I don't actually like you. I don't know who you are. I don't want to be around you, or we don't know how to do that. And it's the same when kids leave home. It's this like the empty nest. And then it's all of a sudden like, what is my purpose now if I'm not a father or a mother? And if I'm not funneling all my energy into that, what is my purpose? And so what we're looking at is, how do we create that legacy? How do we create that shift that tells your children that they are the most important thing in their lives and in yours, but for them to activate that vision, to activate that understanding of creating a reality which they follow their intuitive gift and bringing that to life, but modeling that. And so at the moment, a lot of my clients have been shaken, literally going, yeah, but what is the vision? Yeah, but how much bigger can it be? And how much, like, does it challenge you yet? No. Okay, well then it's not right. Like, we're not on it yet. And I've got one client who's gone away, and he's from the middle of the outback, and he's like, comes back and he's like, that last week was really triggering. I don't know what it is yet. Like, and maybe it's this. And so now he's in the pursuit of that. But I also have a client who's just come into the first week of the new 10-week program that I've just opened up, and towards the end, we're setting goals, and I'm like, if your goal doesn't challenge you, if it doesn't make you slightly uncomfortable, and if it's not challenging your perception of who you can be, and it's gluing you to that limiting belief of like, this is what I am, and this is where I've come from, and I don't want these things. If we're not looking at what we do want and who we could be and what we could create, it's not challenging enough. And I checked into the group yesterday morning. I was like, how are the goals going, guys? And one of them wrote back, I need to challenge myself more. It's not challenging enough. I'll get back to you.
Unreal.
And I'm like, that's what we want. We want to be activating this. And he's a father. And it's been like, my girls are my everything. And now it's like, wait, you know, it really calls people back into that, why am I here? And that snaps the programming and the conditioning in the society of limitation and lack and poverty. And
for sure.
Yeah.
It definitely goes to show, and I've heard of this heaps, like how much belonging helps, like that's a human need, but then also having a purpose. You know, no purpose, it can send people nuts. It's like, well, hang on, if I'm not doing the thing that I've always done and always known, then what am I even doing here? And I think to follow on from what you said, you know, I've heard this from numerous different people over the years. The first place was actually Triple J, so I'm saying that just in case it's wrong. It very well could be. But it's that on average, for, you know, normal, I don't like this word, but for a normal couple, right? They work their 9 to 5, they got a couple of kids, it's a pretty, you know, that's just what we do life. On average, they speak for 12 minutes a day. Get up, say good morning, make some breakfast, go to work, come home, have a bit of a chat over dinner, and then go to bed. And even if that's incorrect and it's more like 24 or 30 minutes a day, still, that's not much. You know, and if you get to the end where your kids have left the house and it's just the two of you, and then you're retired and you're like, hang on a minute, I don't know if I really enjoy hanging out with you that much now that it's just the two of us and we've got nothing else to distract us. It's just us in this little nest. Yeah, I think it really goes to show like the importance of communication, and I think having the intention to consistently grow and evolve within the relationship. And you know, like I've said this, I might have said this in the last podcast. I think I said that at the start of this one. I love it. I say it all the time. To be on the side of who you could be as opposed to who you are. But be that not just for yourself, but for your partner and for your best friend and for your kids, and have them be that for you. And that way, we're always moving forward. And if things aren't working, rather than suppress them and not talk about them, we can go, hey, the energy shifted. What's going on here? Can we have a conversation around what this looks like and move forward? And that's bringing people closer together. But the commonality is that we don't talk about it. I don't want to rustle feathers. They're not going to listen, and then suppress it, become distant, and just have less of a great time together.
Well, the other part about that is to think about and to imagine, and I think that you and I are an anomaly to this because, not long-term partnered, don't have children, all of the things.
True.
So it's hard to conceive in a lot of ways, and I couldn't possibly imagine what it would look like to be with the same person for the last 15 or 20 years because of the amount of evolution and change that I have been through and the amount that I have confronted that and done a lot of work. But if you think about it, lots of partnerships get together when they're 20 and then they have children and then they go to work. And so if you think about that, it's like a young adult who don't really know who they are yet and they don't know what they are in the world just yet, and they've just come out of school, which is, like being under the impression of their parents and the conditioning of their parents, and then being under the conditioning of school, and then potentially under the conditioning of university, and then stepping out into the world, and they haven't even had an opportunity yet to figure out who they are in all of that, and then they get married and then they have kids. And then the kids leave the house when those people might be 45. So if you imagine yourself from 20 to 45 and you've had kids and you've raised them and you've attended to all of their needs and you've had your purpose and meaning in that because that was your conditioning, was like following everyone else's rule, and then you had to figure out how to be a parent and you only did the best you could with what you had, and then all of a sudden you're 45 or 50 and you're confronted with yourself. That's a fucking scary proposition, really.
Yeah.
Right?
Massive.
And so if you're not showing up to doing the work, or if you're not challenging yourself in that way, which so many people, so much of society are not, then it's a pretty rude shock. It's a pretty rude awakening. And if you're a man and you've been suppressing that whole time, and you've been suppressing your emotions and your feelings and your energy and what your understanding of life and society and relationships and being a responsible, good man is, imagine getting to 50 and not having any understanding of what any of that means or where it came from. And now you're just overthinking everything, and you're worried about judgment, and you're judging others, and you've got all of this turmoil going on because it's been pushed down for so long, but you've never learned how to regulate that. And women as well, right? It's both, but I work with men, so I focus on that area. If we're not showing up to the work, and if we're not realizing that we're not actively taught as young people how to regulate ourselves, how to create emotional independence, how to belong to ourselves first and foremost. Because if we're looking for belonging in society, we're never going to find it if we're still alienated from ourselves. And if you think about the amount of conditioning and body issues and the amount of rejection that we go through as children and trying to find that belonging and find that community, and kids not great all of the time in the way that system functions, then, like the amount of people that struggle with body dysmorphia or trying to get away from themselves for so long, if you're searching for that belonging outside of yourself, you're outsourcing it, which means that you're always going to be out of balance because you're looking for something that you can't provide to yourself, which is emotional independence and regulating yourself. But we're not teaching that, or that it's happening more now for sure. But our generation, and like we spoke about in part one, our generation, the generation above us and below us, they didn't really get exposure to that.
Totally.
And
well, it's interesting hearing. I'm just watching Imogen's cat, hoping that my cacao doesn't get tipped over. Yeah, I agree, and it's funny, you kind of beat me to it. That is one reason why I don't love mainstream education. Like I've heard this in different ways be said a lot of times, where like every other system in the world has changed and evolved as we have, and school has stayed the exact same. We're still teaching a whole bunch of things that aren't necessary, that we don't really need to know, and the things that are actually going to help us evolve and grow and learn to self-regulate, and things like, you know, teaching meditation or yoga, different ways to feel like you belong. Like, there's so many things that could be taught. And honestly, I mean, this is actually a little bit of a gripe for me, because I spend a lot of time going into schools running keynote presentations, and there's no follow-up. There's no class that allows people to really properly integrate that work. And I think the two things that frustrate me around this is that if the home environment isn't supportive of change, then it's incredibly challenging for this kid who's just learned all of these different ways of being to come home and maintain that when the household is like, righto, good one, meditation, or whatever it might come out. And the second thing is, you know, like, the system is focused on academia, not social and emotional well-being. You know, it's focused on results, and the wrong results too. Like, you know, I just think to myself, like, fuck, imagine if schools could teach all of the things that we're talking about, and how to operate in such a fast-paced, alienated world. And I say that because the world is changing. We stay the same. We're still cave men and women at the core. You know, like, you imagine how much we used to move our bodies and be in community and feel like we had a purpose, which was to be a part of our village. It's like all of these things have shifted. And I think, you know, a big part of this, which actually it feeds beautifully back into what we spoke about earlier, we haven't got a rites of passage. There's no initiation from boy to man, from girl to woman. You know, yes, it's coming back.
Well, girls actually do have, because when they bleed.
Yes, through their period.
And that is,
say.
And it's a harrowing time because we don't support it in society, and we're taught that it's gross. But, sorry, I jumped in.
And good.
I cut you off.
No, I love it.
It's been one of my particular gripes. It took me until I was 28 to learn how my cycle worked, and why we're not teaching that in schools, why we're not teaching both boys and girls how girls work. Like, girls are fertile for 21 days a year. Men are fertile for 365 days a year, right? We're not taught that. We're not taught about when we're fertile, how to understand, how our temperatures change, how the chemical balance in our bodies completely shifts. So girls do have a rite of passage. They are not taught how to understand and navigate that, though. And it took me until I was in my 30s to really start to love my cycle and appreciate what that meant and what that release was and what that shedding looked like, and how to really move into that, and how to organize my work life so that I have weeks where I'm really productive and weeks where I'm slow, and how to step into that. And I share that in my group coaching container with the guys. We do the push-up challenge or a physical challenge, and I show up to that every day. But when I go into my cycle, I'm like, slow day today, guys, in my cycle, just paying attention to what my body needs. Because they need to hear that. They need to understand that. They're looking for partners, they're looking for female partners, these guys that I'm working with. And so they need to understand that that fluctuates and that changes, but boys don't have that rite of passage. They don't. It's not supported in our society, but they also don't have that introduction to understanding how girls function and why it's important to understand that, and why it's important to support that, and how they can support partnerships and women when they're going through that. Instead, girls are shamed for bleeding. And we are taught to be ashamed of that and to hide it and to try and push ourselves to still function at an optimum level. And this is why I don't like equality. Because it doesn't work. Like, equal pay, equal rights, all of the things, the bodies are not equal. The output is not equal. And if a woman is trying to put herself into that level of functional output all of the time, she's in her masculine.
Fully.
Every time.
It's interesting hearing you say that, because two books that I have in my collection, it's massive. I feel like one day I want to just, like, if you're listening to this and you want the collection, send me like a message, and I'll just send you the list. But two of them, one is Women Who Run with the Wolves, and the other one is Period Power by Maisie Hill. And the amount of, when I do coffee out of the bus and I line all these books out on a surfboard bag, the amount of men that come up and look at Period Power and go, what are you reading this for? And I'm like, well, I don't know much about that stuff. And so maybe when I am dating, I can be more supportive when someone's going through that. And it's always met with such a like, oh, yeah, righto. And just like, and then that's the end of the conversation. But I think, you know, it lends itself to the idea of wanting to be the best version of myself without being in competition with anybody else. The best lover, the best partner, the best facilitator, the best son, and the best dad. I'm not one obviously at the moment, but when I am, I want to be. And so that I'm consistently on this path of growth. And I think to start, I mean, how does this even start? Like, how do we bring this into schools? Like, I've thought about this before. Like, who is at the top of the education system? Like, is it just a board? This will sound pretty whack on a podcast, but I'll just share this. This is true. This is what my brain's thought of. Like, it's just a board, and I imagine like maybe 5 to 8 people, and they are all giant dicks, and they're just sitting there with like giant balls, and they're just like, everything has to stay the same forever. People will learn things that keep them working in factories so that we can keep them small. Like, it's just this thing of like, why are we continuously, like, yes, it's gotten better. We agree that it's getting better and it's gotten better and hopefully it'll get better again. But mainstream education, it doesn't do the things that helps society grow and evolve and come more closer and connected, I don't feel. I feel like if anything, it's disconnecting.
Why would you think that it would be connecting?
The education system?
Yeah.
Well, because that's what I would want it to be.
What you would want it to be, sure, but that's not what it's representative of.
No, but that's my point, is that why isn't it?
Because that's society, and in its current function doesn't want that of us.
No.
And so if we empower people, if we put everyone into their intuitive gift and we encourage that and we taught them emotional resilience and regulation and independence and all those sorts of things, we would have a very independent, very strong, very confident society that would not conform.
Yes.
And so that doesn't fit on a whole in a way of controlling and in a way of holding on to that. It doesn't fit in that state, and we are changing that and challenging that. But in answer to your question, because I know what you want and it would be ideal, but in answer to your question, how do we change that? If we can't change the school system, we have to step outside of the school system. Why I do what I do is because the way that I can impact that is to help fathers change that cycle and that generational belief and system and programming, so that they can break it, so that they can teach their kids something else, so that the kids can learn meditation at school and then come home and be supported in that environment.
Totally.
Because if we can't change the mainstream system, we can change the home environment.
Yes, which, I mean, I agree with you fully. I feel like we're teetering on the verge of what some might call a conspiracy theory, like the system's against us, you know? They're all about divide and conquer. And
no, it's about structured management.
Absolutely. But if we're separate, we're easier to control. If
Definitely.
we're together, then we're stronger as one. And I think the thing is with what you just said, like, you know, one of my talks at schools is called Bridging the Gap. We might have gone over this yesterday, but it's based on what it looks like, you know, being a good man, and we would speak about the stigma of a man and suppression of emotion and all of these kinds of things, self-regulation with our nervous system. But for the 15 or so schools that I've worked with, you know, like, we get to the end and have it's such a beautiful presentation. Like, there's a piece in that where I say to these kids, you know, just raise your hand if you've ever had a bad day. Now, thus far, it's been just boys between kind of 15 and 17. I say, raise your hand if you've ever had a bad day. And all the hands go up. And I say, can you guys look around the room and just check this out, what's going on here? I go, right, well done. Hands down. And then I say, right, now I want you to close your eyes. And I want you to raise your hand if you've ever had a bad day and you haven't told anyone about it, not your mum, not your dad, not your teachers, not your best mates, no one, out of fear that you won't be seen, won't be heard, won't be validated, and ultimately rejected by sharing your true feelings, all the hands go up, 280 odd kids, right? And I say, right, can you stand up, keep your hands up, and open your eyes? And these kids look around this room with this like awe-inspired sense of, oh, it's not just me, like, oh my God, like it's the most heartfelt, emotional moment to stand there as the facilitator of that and look at these kids and go, do you see this? We're not, like we're all the same here. We're all struggling, we're all not sharing, we're all ripping on each other. And I think within this, when at the end of that I speak to teachers and I say, can we get the dads in here? Can we get the parents in here? Like mum and dad, we'll do a full family presentation, same exact thing. And they say, no, that's never going to work. Parents, they don't like getting off the couch. It's hard to get them to sports days, you know, and it'd be too much to hard. Oh, and gee, gosh, you'd have some squirmers. Oh, you'd have some squirmers. I say, yeah, good. I like having squirmers. Squirmers means that I'm making a difference. And not one school is willing to bring in the parents with the reason for that being is to have those kids be able to go home and be in an environment where they are supported and they are nurtured and they are held in this, you know, new way of operating. And that really bothers me, you know, and I've got other ways that I'm kind of moving through it, but I do think that, yeah, we need to step outside of that and do everything possible to just to make it good.
Support the change.
Yeah.
Because it is ultimately part of the school system creation was to separate children from their family influence. You know, part of the reason why that is to separate that unit so that children aren't learning from their parents and that bond is somewhat broken and disparaged. And so why would the schools, they aren't set up in that way. The original structure of that was not set up to support family environments. It was set up to pull them apart.
Which then dives directly into that lack of connection and camaraderie and community. Like there's a saying that brings goosebumps and emotion to me instantaneously, and I learned this because I did the rites of passage training with Anna Rubinstein. I've been running those courses for the last 5 years for a school down in Melbourne, and the saying is, if we aren't acknowledging our young boys through the transition to manhood, they will burn down the entire village just to feel the heat.
Yeah.
It's fucking huge.
Yeah.
I just got them then. And I think if we go full circle back to this idea of rites of passage, you know, we were talking about yesterday, like women in their masculine and kind of fighting for leadership and dominance in this way. And I think, if it is both and it's a part of that wounded feminine, because if they're in that, then they're not being the nurturing, soft, kind, caring, loving type that child needs growing up. So this just came to me earlier. Like if we've got a whole bunch of uninitiated men rolling around that don't know their purpose, that don't know their place and what they're doing, and the women are going, well, we need
sort it the fuck out.
We need you to sort it the fuck out, and we're not. And so they're then stepping up, which in turn is very confusing. And then the child is like, well, where's my nurturer? Where's my carer? You've just got two masculine people in the family, both playing the dominance role, and it doesn't work, you know. And it's like, but then again, this is not all men and it's not all women, of course. I mean, for me right now, I'm completely spitballing. This is just whatever's coming through, but it does feel true for me that, you know, if we haven't had some kind of initiation, celebration, some threshold where we were recognized from, you know, traversing through boyhood to manhood and what that looks like to be a good man, it does make sense if I think of this like feminine movement of women being like, you've got no idea what's going on, we're stepping up because you're not. It lands, basically, is what I'm saying. And I feel like that is a part of the issue that we're speaking to of, you know, ultimately boys not growing up without a mother who's in her feminine.
Yeah. And the thing about that is, and to add to your quotes, the other one that I love, which is of the similar vein, is that strong men create good times create weak men create bad times. Bad times create strong men. And I think that we are moving through the bad times right now.
Yes.
And we are creating strong men, but in my understanding of how this journey works, if you don't have adversity to break through, if you don't have that pressure to have to challenge everything and sacrifice and face yourself and confront yourself, and you're not, getting knocked down and getting back up again, then that is what creates that ultimate strength and that ultimate direction and that ultimate insatiable need for more, to understand more, to challenge everything and to keep pushing. But it's not a gentle journey, and it takes a lot of willpower and a lot of desire to be able to step up and step up and step up to that. But if we don't have the tools and we don't have the resources in our, particularly for men, what I see is that if they learnt how to receive love from a woman who is stuck in her masculine, then they're going to look for a woman who is stuck in her masculine in the world. And you won't get what you want, you'll get what you know. And so if what you know is that the woman's in control and that she's the chief and that, she does all of the things and she just fucking sorts it all out and does all the cleaning and does all the cooking and gets everyone to school and also goes to work and also does all of those things, then that's what men are looking for. But it challenges the natural state of being, because then they just submit. And they just keep submitting to that because it's what they know, but it will always be at odds because it's not in order with the natural balance and the natural structure of things. And that's the point which we lose trust, because at that point we have competition with our partners, because man and woman are in competition. We talked about this yesterday. And that's the challenge. There's no safety and there's no support and there's no compassion in the family because everyone's in survival mode.
Totally.
And when everyone's in survival mode, we're at war all of the time. And if we're at war all of the time, we're not stepping into love and we're not stepping into connection and we're not accepting ourselves because we're at war.
Yeah. It feels like, and I love this, we will revert back to what feels most familiar in those developmental stages of life.
Fuck yeah.
Even if it was really not great for us. The way that we were shown love and received love is most likely, until we break the cycle, how we are going to seek that out as we move into our adult years.
Yeah.
And I find that so interesting, I was literally talking about this yesterday on the second podcast I had with Zara, and she does a lot of attachment styles, relationship coaching, and she was saying that, it's like if you grow up in a volatile environment where your mum and dad fight all the time, but then at the end come back together and say, I love you, honey, then the likelihood of you finding someone that, it's like your nervous system base layer is way up here, and that feels normal, that feels familiar, and actually it's, what meant to be much lower, let's say. So I do find that interesting.
Well, it is, you will always sit in what you know and what you understand, and the ego will always keep you in safety. And so safety is not, let's make a distinction here, safety is not being safe. Safety is being comfortable. Safety is being in what you know and what you understand. And so if what you understand is chaos, you'll stay there because you don't know how to be in sustainable, quiet, calm, structured ways. And we've talked about this before. It's how would you create a life of success if what you understand is chaos and what you thrive in is chaos? You're going to self-sabotage yourself back there all the time. And I hear a lot of men speak about this of I got really successful and then all of a sudden I lost it all and I had nothing again, because we don't know, we haven't had it shown to us what it looks like to hold that level of success. And so our ego will take us back to, and your ego is just the front piece facing part of you that interacts with the world. The ego is not good or bad, you know, like it just is part of you, and that's a separate gripe about that conversation, but it will keep you safe. And so safety is just what you know. So even if you look at that and you go, I know that will be better for me, if you don't know how to get there and you have no data to know what that experience feels like, you'll stay in your discomfort.
Totally.
And there's a quote or research that says that, like, you will, if someone treats you only slightly worse than what you treat yourself, you will stay. It requires them to treat you a lot worse, like visibly worse than you already treat or think about yourself, for you to actually action leaving. And if we think about abuse, and if we think about domestic violence and all of those sorts of things, they happen incrementally, but it helps it for women particularly, or in my experience of being in mentally abusive and emotionally abusive relationships, that degradation of your self-worth is slow, and it whittles away at you. And so by the time you realize that your life is being destroyed in some way, the energy level and the self-respect and the self-love and the self-worth and your treatment of yourself is already so low that your ability to get out is exhausting. Just the thought of that. But you've been conditioned to a point to understand that that's how life is now. And so the ability to go, well, I'll get out. And this is what people look at, like, why wouldn't you just leave? It's like, because that outcome is more terrifying than this one, because at least in this one I know what's going to happen.
True.
I know how uncomfortable I'm going to be. I know how in pain I'm going to be. I know how many times I'm going to be on the kitchen floor crying. I understand that. What I don't understand is what is outside
what
of
it
that.
Looks like out there.
Where am I going to go? What am I going to do? How am I going to earn money? How am I going to, like, find somewhere to live if there's kids involved? You know, like, to leave a situation like that or a life like that requires you to also confront yourself. And that's the hardest part, to know that you can't just leave. We can, but to leave and to change your life, you need to confront yourself, which is, why did I do this? Why did I call it in? And in shamanism, what we would look at is nothing happens by accident. No, there's no there's no such thing as coincidences. We are calling all of those experiences in. And if I ask someone, well, why did you ask for that? They're like, well, I didn't. Why would I want that? And it's like, well, you're not consciously wanting that. Subconsciously, you want the experience, though, because you need to learn. What's the cycle? Why is it repeating? Like, what haven't we got yet? And that's really confronting for people, to take accountability for their journey and their experience and their pain, and not blame someone else.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of a beautiful saying, which it sounds quite backwards to a lot of people, which I respect. When I first heard it, I was like, whoa, that is huge. And it's that when someone does you wrong, you actually apologize to them and you say, I'm sorry that because of the unhealed parts in my life, I've caused you to play this role. And I think for me, what I really take from that is that it's about lessons and silver linings. And when I meet people or coach people that keep having the same relationship, where they keep dating the same shitty dude or shitty woman, whatever it might be, and they go, I keep dating these assholes. It's like, yeah, you haven't learned the lesson yet. They're coming into your life to show you something and teach you something. And until you get that, you're going to keep repeating the same pattern. So it's interesting. Like, I can still remember I had a coach, you know, the idea that your focus creates your reality, and that you created all of it. Like, you created all the good stuff, and which we like to go, yeah, I did, but then equally all the bad stuff. And there's been some things in my life, particularly when I was in that coaching container, and I was so triggered. I was like, fuck off. Why would I create this? Why would I want that to happen to me? And it can be so triggering to someone whilst they're still processing the ordeal that went down. But I think in hindsight, now that I'm where I'm at now, I can look at that and go, oh, okay. I can see the lessons there.
And it is the lesson shall be retaught until the student is ready.
Oh my God, I love that. That's so good.
Yeah, and the equal part to that is when the student is ready, the teacher shall arrive.
Yes, I have heard that one.
And they're out of the same prophet. But it is that, you know, like people go, I don't know where I'm meant to go or how I'm meant to confront this, or, you know, like where do I even start? And it's like, well, start with the person that shows up that calls you out and makes you the most uncomfortable. Go there. Because they're the one that's going to kick up all your dust.
Totally. It's exactly what you did to me.
Yeah.
I'd love to quickly tap into the ego just for a hot second. How are we going for time? You've got a watch on there. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that I speak to in my workshop is the idea that, you know, the ego is trying to keep you alive, and by virtue of keeping you alive, it's keeping you safe, which we know that that's not always actual safety. And by virtue of keeping you safe, it's keeping you small. Now, the thing that I want to say here that I think is really interesting is that if we can really recognize this, because for me, the way that I like to explain it, and I think I'm sharing this now more so to hear your thoughts and opinions, is that the ego hates conflict, confrontation, judgment, anything where you might lose or look silly. And so if we say, like, I like to think of it as like a safety square. So we're operating in the square, it's familiar, we've been here before. You might even say to some degree it's monotonous. Doesn't mean it's not going to be challenging. But if we were to step outside that square where there is a potential outcome of conflict, confrontation, judgment, losing or looking silly, like let's say asking someone on a date, having a hard conversation with a loved one, asking your boss for a pay rise, that's when this ego will create a narrative around why you shouldn't do that and you're not worthy and they won't like you. And what if your boss says no, everyone knows you've gone for the promotion. And so it's, you know, more often operating out of fear and our unconscious beliefs and core values about ourselves that aren't really true. And so therefore, if we can recognize that our ego is keeping us safe, alive, and therefore small, I feel like then we can also recognize that the only person that's actually stopping us from being the best, most amazing, expansive version of ourselves is fucking guess who? It's us.
Yeah.
And I think we need to become comfortable in the uncomfortable and recognize, like, this is important to me. Like, you know, people are so afraid of making a mistake. And the best saying one of the best sayings I've ever heard is the biggest mistake that you could ever make is to be afraid of making one in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, if you don't get what you want, you go back to where you just were 5 minutes ago or yesterday, and it hopefully for you wasn't the worst place in the world.
Yeah.
And I'd rather know that I did my best and tried everything and went for the things that I desired, as opposed to not doing that and cruise around this life just wondering what it could be like if I just went for it. You know? The ego is such an interesting part of us that I think if we aren't aware of it, then the chances are more than 50% of the time it's just driving the ship, you know, and our fears are being made out of fear and unconscious beliefs and things like this, which isn't serving us and isn't serving our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this is my own quote that came through for me was, you are your only obstacle, but you are also your single greatest opportunity.
Oh, fuck! That's huge.
It is, and it's true though, right?
Absolutely.
You are always going to be your only obstacle, but you are your single greatest opportunity every single minute of every day. And you can choose to stay in that fear program and stay inside your square, or you can choose to step out of it. But what we need in that space is to understand what the triggers, what the signaling system in our body is that tells us where we are. And so for me now, if I have resistance to something, that is my understanding, that's my signaling system that I need to act on that.
Yeah.
But what most people are doing is feeling that resistance and going, oh no, that sounds hard, I'm not going to do it. But for me, you know, like even breath work has been one of my biggest things where like I'll do it, but if I think about doing it again, I'm like, oh, I really don't want to do that. And so if I have that feeling now, I'm like, right, well, I'm doing it and I'm signing up and I'm paying the money and I'm going.
Yeah.
And I'm confronting whatever that is, because I know that now, because I've shown up to this and I've done it many times, or like of myself in many different ways, that signaling system is actually my body telling me, that resistance is my body telling me that I have something to understand here. There's a new layer that I need to experience, and so I need to go towards that experience, that opportunity, because that's where the growth is.
Yeah.
And growth isn't comfortable. But there is this massive misunderstanding, I think, in society as a whole, that that person's so egotistical, they're so stuck in their ego, or there's this thing in the like the spiritual community that is like, you have to let go of your ego. And I so don't agree with that, because your ego is just your interface. Like, we don't come up to people and go, wow, you have such a beautiful ego, right? Like, you are, like, genuinely, like, the way that you interact with the world and the way that you show up and the way that you communicate with people, it's so beautiful.
Yeah.
We just go, oh, that person's got such an, like, so arrogant, they've got such a bad ego, like, blah, blah, blah. There's this demonization of the ego, but it's just our interface.
Totally.
It's our system.
We can't kill it.
We can't kill it.
It's
we
a
can't
part
get
of
rid
us.
of it. We can't step out of it.
Yeah.
All we can do is learn how to operate with it, which is understanding what those signaling systems mean and how to show up to that and how to hold ourselves in that resistance.
Yeah.
And to step up over and over and over again. Like, that's just why I say to my clients, like, if you are sitting in reaction, if you are struggling and your mind is going crazy and you can't make a decision and you can't see and you're frustrated, sit down. Just sit down. Give yourself a minute to just be quiet and stop the busyness and allow the information to come through. That's still your ego coming through and saying, and your intuition coming through and saying, just do this.
Yeah.
But we're fighting it so much because we don't understand it, like everything else.
It's interesting hearing you say that. Like, I love, there's a symbol in mythology, like Eastern mythology, and the ego is represented by two dragons, and they're kind of like crisscrossing over, and they're like coming out at you, and they're like, ah! And what they say is, pacify the dragon, make friends with this part of yourself that shows up and perhaps, doesn't allow you to operate from the spaces that you want to. And then in Western mythology, when they've got the same symbol, they cut off its head. And when they do that, it grows two more, so there's four, and then they cut those off, and then there's eight. So it works on this idea of what we resist persists.
Yeah.
And I think, just stop fighting, stop running, stop cutting off its head, fucking sit down. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and it's so right, because like, while we're fighting, like, you're fighting yourself. There's no one else in it. Like, the fear doesn't exist outside of you, right? The thing that we're terrified of happening, the judgment or the, looking silly or any of those, it doesn't exist anywhere other than in your brain. That's the only place that it lives. And we are constantly lashing ourselves with the past and, the times that we made those mistakes in the past, but the past only exists in your mind as well.
For sure.
It doesn't exist anywhere else. So you can choose to see that and step forward anyway. You can choose to go on that mission knowing that all of those things are looming next to you. And you can choose to keep moving forward.
Totally.
Right? Like, it's only scary until we start. And
it's almost like another part of this, which I love, is that ego, because I think it's multifaceted. Like, I love the idea that I believe to be true is that it's protecting our identity, and our identity stems from childhood. And the question is, like we said, was it yesterday? Or I've had so many conversations of late, but that idea of being, well, who did you have to become in order to receive love? Whatever that person was, that will be your identity. And so the saying that I love is, the way that we wish to be perceived by society will dictate our behavior. And so if my archetype or my identity is the nice guy or girl, sad, strong, smart, intelligent, there's hundreds, and someone questions that and challenges it, then ultimately I'll fight tooth and nail to make sure that no, I'm right, I'm absolutely right, and this is who I am, and this is why I'm like this. It's like the person that's the nice guy or girl generally speaking, and I know this because that's been my identity for a long time that I've been working on, no boundaries. You know, like a yes man to everything. My body is like, hey, can we have a bath and do nothing tonight? And then my mate rings me and goes, oh, there's this amazing band at the pub, let's go. What do I do? Well, I want to be perceived as this nice person, so I say, yeah, okay, no worries. And so, you know, it took a long time for me to drop the narrative, to drop the story, and just be like, you know what, no, I don't need to do what everyone else wants me to do in order to be perceived in this way. Yeah. I'll still be perceived as who I am if I choose to follow my own gut instinct and what my body needs. So I think it is, for me, I think it's worth thinking about if you're listening to this and going like, what character am I playing of a day?
Yeah.
You know? And am I able to just be myself?
Yeah. And the way that I would explain that, because I'm quite a visual, practical person, is that everything that you experience when you're young is all here, right? It's all in the way that, so for you to be able to look at, you know, that cup and decide that you like that cup, you're looking through everything that's ever happened to you.
Yes.
Because we don't have any understanding of what those things mean. And so if there's been a lot of trauma, then we're looking through the guise of all of this trauma and all of this mess that's happened in our lives. And the work itself is being able to pull out those things and look at them and understand what they mean, but also to rationalize what it means as an adult versus what it meant when you were 5 and you adopted that mentality because of that traumatic event that happened. And so when you've got that, you're sitting in, like, you might be 25 or you might be 30 or whatever age you are, you're looking at the world through a perception of what you understood something to mean that happened to you when you were 5 years old. And so it's a mess because it doesn't make any sense, because it's not, it hasn't gone through a filtration system of cognitive understanding and maturity. So you're still making decisions based on an outcome that happened to you when you were 5 years old. And so when you do the work, you pull those things out and you confront them and you face them and you look at them and you understand them and then you file them. And the best way that I can explain it is that the more work you do, the more of these pieces you pull out from the front of your face and the front of your vision and the front of your decision-making capability, and you look at them and you understand what they are and you file them over here. And over time, you pull those things out of your vision and out of your direct line of sight and interface with the world, and you file more and more of them away. And the deeper you do the work, the longer you do it, the more you confront, the bigger the layers are, the better you get at it, the faster it happens.
Yeah.
But eventually you get to a point where your vision becomes clear and you're starting to make decisions based on where you are now, based on your understanding of everything that's happened to you, and based on your ability to cognitively maneuver through your new experiences in a present way. And that's how we achieve presence. I don't believe that we can achieve real presence and active listening and participation in interaction with someone else if we're still swimming and drowning in all of our pain and all of our trauma and all of our experience for all of our lives.
True.
Because so many people are creating their personality from their pain. And your pain is not your personality. Your experience of life does not make who you are. Like, it informs the journey, it informs the decisions, but ultimately we need to get to a point where we can let those things go, when we can let the experience of abuse go and go, that no longer has a hold on me. And I know why it happened. I know why I experienced it. I've transcended that wounding. I can let that experience go, because the more that we talk about it, the more we create life to it. Like we're attaching to that and we're calling it back in.
Yeah.
And so what if you could understand your trauma so deeply that then you could let it go and it informs your decisions now, but it's no longer part of you. And we weren't holding on to ownership of that anymore.
Huge. Do you think that within that, you know, like, there are modalities, and I'm kind of like, I might even be answering this as I'm saying it, like you saying that to sit in radical presence and deep listening is near impossible / really challenging if we're swimming in all of our pain. If someone was to start like a daily meditation practice, you know, in your experience, would you say that that will over time assist in sitting with that presence in a space of silence without having... No, I wouldn't.
No,
I wouldn't.
Because
I get it. And what's interesting, actually, I'll just say this quickly. I've only downloaded this the other day, which blew my mind, and this is why I agree with you, actually. You know, like when I meditate, and this is something I teach, as you know, to put it really simply, focus point will be the breath. Thoughts come and go, acknowledge them, see them for what they are, no attachment, no judgment, watch them leave, back to the breath. And it's nice. You might just say the word thinking, and then come back to the breath. And the idea is that over a period of time, we're going from meditation eyes closed to meditation eyes open, which means that IRL, in real life, we're not reactive. If things happen that, would normally really piss us off, we can just take a breath into the area that we feel that, breathe it out, and then move on from there. So we're, again, responding as opposed to reacting. And actually, what I noticed was, this last month, you know, there's been a few things that have come up, like low ticket sales for MBS Festival, kind of frustrated me. A friend back home that kind of went MIA and wasn't returning my calls. Another friend in Sydney that I was like, oh, I wonder what's going on there. Like just a couple of little things. And I would notice these thoughts arise and go, oh yeah, no worries, thinking, see the thought and let it go. And then what happened was, and it's mind-blowing I didn't get this earlier, but basically when I sit in meditation, all of the thoughts that arise in that sacred silent space are literally only things that need my attention, unfinished business, loose ends, unprocessed traumas. They are things that are rising to the surface. My body is going, hey dude, you've got the tools to work through this now. We'd like to start, doing the work on this. And for the whole time, and I wasn't taught this in my meditation teaching, like it was just like, see a thought, acknowledge that it's there, don't attach, don't judge, and see it go. And that was it. And to kind of look at this and go, the things that are coming up are those things that need attention. And so you can imagine that if you have suffered and heart goes out to you listening to this, then yeah, sitting in silence would be incredibly challenging, because the things that are going to arise to the surface in that place of non-distraction will be the things that you are invited to, if you're ready to, start looking at and transmuting.
And I think that comes through what I term as the Love, Light and Rainbows viewpoint on it.
Oh yeah.
Is that, like without doing the shadow work, we don't have the tools to process those things. So if you're inviting a space for those things to come up, but you have no method and no understanding and no practice of being able to process them, then you're just constantly acknowledging your pain.
Yeah.
And you're stuck in that rumination of, I should be better, I should be happy, I've seen it, therefore it can go. But how are we facilitating the journey for it to shift?
True. And that, to really value add to what you said, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's why one gripe with meditation is that all we're taught is to meditate and not what to do when uncomfortable feelings and sensations rise to the surface. And so, yes, for those listening, if ever you were to come and join me on that practice, I don't just leave you there and be like, cool, good luck. Like we do a whole emotional release practice as well as that. It's actually interesting. I was thinking about this the other day. I should call it, it's not just meditation.
Yeah.
Because it's not. It's more than that. Yeah. It's a 2-part process. And I think if we only learnt part 1, then...
It's multifaceted.
It's multifaceted. And you're right. We're just leaving people wounded on the side of the road with no tools.
Well, and this is the other thing about radical self-reflection and radical self-acceptance is, there's a lot of people going towards, and there's a huge, it's like the new hit thing right now for people to do ayahuasca journeys. And in that, it's like if we still don't have the tools, we still don't have the understanding, we still don't have a real communion with the medicine or how to process that, then we're going and we're outsourcing because we're asking something else to purge all of our shit and to pull it all to the surface. And then people walk out of those ceremonies
the next day,
or they've done it for 3 weeks, whatever that looks like, like wherever you're going to do it. But people are walking out of that, and majority of people don't have the tools still. So now they've pulled and purged everything to the surface, their generational trauma, their own experience, all of their pain is sitting on the surface now with no tools to process and integrate. And there isn't much, from what I've seen, we have with the intuition development, with the Ankara online portal, we get a lot of people coming through their spiritual awakening. I have talked to so many people on the phone who say, I did ayahuasca and now I don't really know what to do. Because that's your meditation part one. It's like, well, purging it is part one. Integrating it is the most important part of that.
Yeah.
And so the work is that, like, if you've done a lot of that and you go and do ayahuasca, then that's going to do some great, make some great shifts in your life, because you're going to pull it out and then you're going to go, okay, this is like, I need to sit with this, I need to do these things, this is my process, I'm going to journal, I'm going to show up, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to do all of those practices to hold myself through that integration
fully,
and I'm going to get support in that. But if you're going to that because you want to fix your problem, then that's emotional outsourcing. That's saying, I don't know how to do this, here you go ayahuasca, you do it for me. And that's what I see in the groups as well. And that's one of the things with that, if you don't belong to yourself, you can't belong with other people. If you don't know how to love yourself, how do you ask someone else to love you? If you don't know what it feels like, it's not what it looks like. If you don't know what it feels like to receive that on a regular basis, then how do you know how to accept it? And that's the scarcity versus success, right? And that's why we'll self-sabotage, and that's that ego thing. If we want to pull it all together, is that we don't know what that feels like to receive. And so it is your job to regulate your love level all of the time. Otherwise, you're giving it to someone else saying, I don't know how to maintain this. Here, you're my partner, you take responsibility for it. And then if your partner's having a bad day, or they haven't sorted out their trauma and they haven't done their work and they don't know how, they're now in charge of balancing out your love level. So if they're having a bad day, you're having a worse day, because they have ownership of your emotion and you've given it to them.
Yeah.
Which says, I've given you permission to regulate me in this way. And that's the work that I'm doing. And that's why I'm focusing on it, because if men can regulate that emotional level, if men can take control of that and say, I know what I need, I know how to regulate myself, and I know when I need support in that, which is to the conversation that we were having yesterday around, like when we are looking for support from other people, what do we need to say? And what do we need to hold to ourselves? What do we need to recognize for ourselves first? And what do we need help with? What is too much to share? And what is an exposure that isn't necessary? But we're looking for other people to regulate us because we're outsourcing, because we don't know how to regulate.
Yeah, that was something I walked away with yesterday, going, people speaking to other people that haven't got the tools, and then them just walking around with that other person's shit going, well, I don't know what to do. It's super interesting. Super interesting.
I really want to hit on because we've had this conversation, and I think it's really important, but that sorry piece. I know you're about to ask me a question. Please go ahead and ask. But you know about my gripe with sorry, and I've heard you say it a few times. And so I wonder if you want to go into that.
Yeah.
But what was your question?
I was going to ask you something about, well, my question was actually checking in how much time I've got left with you.
20 minutes.
20. And you want to go into the sorry piece that I spoke to in the bus.
Well,
or sorry in general?
sorry in general, but we can talk about that if you want.
Okay, let me pose something to you.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things that I was going to speak to you about. So, one was the time, and then with that time, I was curious whether or not you felt more called to dive into a quick discussion on masculine and feminine and what it means in both of those energies. The second thing was whether it felt more or less aligned to step into some Ankara Academy stuff, more specifically focusing on shamanism, because that's such a crazy word that gets thrown around. And just for the listeners out there, because this is all going in the podcast, I'm not editing this out what we're talking about, but the session that Imogen facilitated for me the other day was very, can I say shamanic?
Yeah, what it was.
It was like, we were doing like deep ancestral
Work.
and I went back 18 generations in my ancestry line and cleared a whole bunch of stuff, and so
That made no sense to you before you were in it either.
yeah, absolutely none. And so there's that,
We can go down the shamanism line.
and then there's the story as well. And then there's also, this is the other thing too, there's a question at the end of every podcast which we didn't ask yesterday because we knew we'd be coming back again. So and furthermore, I am happy to go into the sorry piece as well. Just to speak to that, maybe you speak to what's in like a sentence or like 30 seconds, what is your, so that people understand what we're talking about. It's a gripe with people apologising for things that aren't theirs. Is that right?
Sorry implies guilt and shame.
Right.
And so every time we apologise, and if we're apologising for, moving past someone in the supermarket, like when people are pushing their trolley and they're like, oh, sorry, like it's just this overuse of something that implies a lot of guilt and shame and baggage and ownership over things that aren't necessarily ours. And so there's like, we're so busy apologising because we feel bad about things, but that's the accountability piece. If we step into change the behaviour, if you say sorry and you don't change the behaviour, it's just words. It's the same as manifestation is just words without actions, right? Like, so if we're apologising for it but we're not changing anything, we don't mean anything by it, so why are we lugging that around? And why are we taking accountability for things that aren't ours necessarily in terms of what we spoke about? Like when we're apologising on behalf of all people that have had this experience, well, that's not your responsibility, and now you've taken ownership over it, which is that emotional outsourcing piece. And so sorry also implies that we have to justify and explain ourselves, and we don't owe anyone that ever.
Unless...
Never.
Surely...
Ever.
I feel like we're on Dr. Evil. Like when he won't let his kid talk.
Yeah.
If you do wrong by someone and you acknowledge that you did that,
why are you justifying yourself? Why do you need to explain to them what your internal system is understanding?
Because it's nice to say sorry. If I fuck up and like upset someone or do the wrong thing by them, and they express to me that they're upset, and I can acknowledge my role that I played in that, obviously I'm going to say sorry to them.
So apologise in a different way.
How else can you apologise apart from saying...
If you show up to someone and you go, hey, I know that yesterday was really intense and I yelled at you, I got triggered, and this is what I understand from that, and this is the actions that I'm putting in place to directly start shifting through that, because I know it's a problem, and now and from yesterday I've seen that, and I really didn't mean to impact you on that level, but I'm taking accountability of that piece. That's an apology.
That is pretty good.
And that's still you saying, this is my ownership, this is my accountability, and this is what's going on.
I feel like I would say all of that, except I would add in sorry as well. Hey, I'm really sorry for my behaviour yesterday. I was triggered, and when I've learned through that...
But are you sorry because you learnt something?
No, I'm sorry for my actions making that person feel the way that they felt.
That's you taking ownership of their evolution. that's not your responsibility either.
Yeah, that's such a can of worms though, because then that plays on the idea of like, I'm sorry that you feel that way, which completely removes you from the situation, versus I'm sorry that I made you feel that way. And if you're saying that I'm sorry that I made you feel that way, and you go, well, you can't make someone feel something, which I get that, and I have heard this before, but it's like, oh, this is a whole other podcast. It's going to happen again. It's going to happen again. We're going to finish, and I'll be like,
terrified my cat with all of our...
So, okay, do you think that you can control your emotions?
To an extent, I think you can understand them. And I think that you can regulate them.
You can regulate them, but I can't control when I'm triggered. I can only feel the emotion and then act accordingly. And if I choose in that moment to react, what?
Oh, just this can of worms is great.
Yeah, it's good. We weren't even going to go here, and now we're here, so we just have to keep going. Yeah. I've heard lots of spiritual guides and teachers say that you're in control of everything. You can control your emotions, and I'm like, no. If something happens and I'm instantly triggered, I didn't choose that emotion to show up in that moment. However, I can recognize that it's there, and fortunately for me at least, have the tools in that moment to breathe into it, sit with it, and not lash out. So it's feeling what's there and acting accordingly. And if someone triggers me, I understand that is mine to look at.
They didn't trigger you because they're not responsible for your life experience. Your triggers are your responsibility. Your experience is yours to understand. And the more that you understand of it, the less you will get triggered, because the more you've confronted it, the more you know about your experience, the more you understand, the more you pull those pieces out of your face, out of your vision, and out of your perception of things, and understand them and shelve them in a place of awareness, the less you will become triggered. And when you become triggered, it's your gift, because that's where your learning is and that's where your attention needs to be focused.
Yes.
But nobody is responsible for the trigger that is coming up within you. So if someone makes you angry, they can't. So no one can make you feel anything. Only you are responsible and accountable for your emotional state of being at all times. Someone else's behavior can impact that, but why are you in that situation in the first place? Why did you call that in?
Because you had a lesson to learn.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is the thing, which I'm just kind of like checking myself. If I said this yesterday, it doesn't matter. It's worth saying twice. Your triggers are your teachers, and your mess is your message. Mm-hmm. I love that. Like, if I can give anyone any kind of like, I don't want to say like, this might come across as unsolicited advice, but being triggered hurts, it sucks, it's uncomfortable, but it's also, like you said, for me, like, I'm grateful in that moment, you know, like, you triggered the fuck out of me at MBS Festival. I was like, oh my God, who is this red-headed firecracker that just unsettled all of the dust within me? But I knew that there was something to be looked at there, and some kind of...
So why would I have apologized for that?
Well, of course you wouldn't have, but that's different to say... This is so weird, because I feel like you're right, you just haven't won me over fully yet. I'm like 90% there. Let's just pretend for a minute, yes, I agree with you that no one triggers you, that's your experience from your past, etc., etc. If going off of the idea that people can trigger you, right? I'm triggered by so-and-so doing A, B, or C. If that person didn't walk into the room and say the thing that they said, you wouldn't be triggered. That's my point. So when someone says...
Why were you in the room?
Well, you were in the room because you had to be there to learn the lesson, to grow and evolve and expand. And I think the thing
So why do they need to be sorry for your need to experience that situation?
Because to me, it's just nice to recognize that you played a role in someone's trigger, and a trigger hurts and it's uncomfortable. And so...
That doesn't mean that you should be sorry for it.
Yeah, but sorry to me doesn't make me feel like...
Sorry makes people feel pleasant.
The person saying sorry?
everyone.
Do you reckon?
Yeah.
I like saying sorry if I've hurt someone's feelings. Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often, if at all. I've pride myself on being a very nice guy. Genuinely do. It feels good to be nice. It's nice to do nice things for people. But I'm not perfect. Sometimes I say the wrong thing and I've behaved in ways where people have been like, oh, that was really disappointing, and I feel bad. I feel upset that I've upset them. And so
that's yours to deal with.
Yes, I agree with you on that.
Yours to be sorry for, because by saying sorry and by taking ownership of I made that person upset means that that's a very big ego narrative that says I've now impacted your whole life, and what an influence and what an impact I've had on you. And that's who are you in that space? You're taking ownership of that person needing that trigger to come up and needing to have that experience so that they can go on their evolution.
True.
And if you're saying sorry, you're taking responsibility for their evolutionary journey, and that's not yours. You're not that amazing, I'm sorry, but you're an incredible person, but you're not that amazing that you're now changing people's lives in a way that means that you need to take ownership over that. And sorry is claiming I did something wrong here. But if you've triggered someone in whatever way, good, bad, or otherwise, it's still they needed it, they asked for it, they called it in subconsciously and unconsciously, and both of your stories needed to be in that space at that time to go on those evolutionary journeys of your own. Why the fuck are we sorry for that? That's a gift.
Yeah. I mean, I'm loving this so much. I'd like to make it very clear that I'm not saying sorry to someone because I'm wanting to take responsibility for their evolution. That's not in my brain thoughts when I think, oh fuck, I've upset you. I feel bad that I've upset you. My first unconscious, well, it's not even unconscious. I think, well, gosh, I want to rectify this. And so I'm choosing to go and apologize to that person for the way that I've made them feel. I'm not sitting in that being like, well, look at me go. I've pissed them off, and in the long run, they'll be better off for it. What, you reckon you should trigger people and then just walk away being like, I've done a great thing, I'm going to go buy myself a fucking almond croissant and just lavish in this idea that they're unhappy with me, but in the long term, they're going to be better than what they were, because people haven't got the tools to just know this. You and I might, and some listeners might, we can sit there and go, okay, cool, I'm triggered, there's a lesson in this, what's the lesson? But
it's a moment of self-reflection though, and what I'm not saying is never apologize to someone. What I am saying is consider greatly when that is necessary, and equip yourself with the tools to have better conversations that acknowledge what's happened without taking ownership over it or applying guilt and shame to it for it having happened.
Okay. What I want is for people that are listening to this, I put this out there on some podcasts. It never happens. Everyone's respectfully very busy. Someone, all of you, send us a message. I'm agreeing with you, but let's get some input here. What are you thinking? Are you saying sorry? Are you fully in agreement with Imogen? Can you see my point? Can you see both of our points? I really feel like this is juicy, and I like that we can disagree, because we haven't really disagreed on a topic.
It's
which
so
has
important.
Been love. It is.
Yeah.
Disagreeing is a great thing. If we all just agreed, it'd be bloody boring.
Yeah.
All right, time check me. What do we got? 6 minutes.
6 minutes.
All right. See if you can answer this question for me in 6 minutes. That was phenomenal.
Yeah.
The whole thing's been phenomenal. Part 1, part 2, that little juicy discussion on apologising. I love this question. Simple but potent. What troubles you? Probably people saying sorry. What troubles you? Tell us all.
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
I think I think that currently what troubles me is the ability to find and connect with other people that are pushing for the level of exceptional, like what it means to be the most exceptional version of your, or expression of your soul in this life. And I find that the more work that I do, the more that I show up, the more that I figure out what my genius is, and the more that I step into that space, and I'm aware that this might sound a little bit arrogant, and it's not meant that way. I genuinely struggle with how do we find those connections that are or align with other people. It just feels like needle in the haystack kind of things, and it's frustrating for me sometimes that like I want to shake people and give them this insatiable need that I have to break the cycles of my family and to challenge everything. But it's also like watching and supporting people on that journey, recognizing that what I have is quite unique in a lot of ways, and that drive and that ability to stand in someone's way and question their entire reality in the first 5 minutes of meeting them.
Yeah.
And that's quite confronting to hold as well, you know, and to watch people walk away knowing that I've just shaken their snow globe up intensely.
It's a good analogy.
And not be able to put those pieces back together or hold that pathway for them, because ultimately what I want to do is help people grow into the greatest expression of themselves, because I'm in pursuit of that for myself. And I think that what troubles me is I'm in this place where I would like those connections, and I have been isolated for a lot of my life. And so coming out into this space of like, how do I find those people and how do I build those connections, and how do I step into that space, and how do I meet people that are on that same sort of similar trajectory, that are friends and not people that I need to pay to learn from.
Right. So just so I'm clear, what you're saying is you are troubled by the challenge in finding people who are on the same dedicated path as you to just be the absolute best version of themselves, step into their genius, and, you know, are doing what they're doing for themselves and the greater good. Is that kind of right?
Yeah, I think so. Listening to it back, it sounds all sorts of off, but yeah, I that's like my current. I think because I would like, as we've talked about, I guess if I'm way more vulnerable in that share, what we've talked about is understanding ourselves on that level, and women moving through out of the masculine. And I have been so focused on trying to learning how to step into graciousness and step into patience and compassion and love and expression and vulnerability, and to be able to share that with someone. And I want that in my life, and I find it ultimately really hard to find in a true form of someone that is gonna go on the journey with you, and that is going to show up to that and have these conversations and challenge me and hold me accountable. And I find it particularly, I don't know if particularly hard is the right word. I think I've just come to terms with the fact that I do want that. But I guess that's my trouble at the moment, is how do I balance that, and what am I looking for, and what does it look like? Because if we, like I said before, if we don't know what it feels like, then how do we know what it is when we come across it?
Are you speaking about this in relation to friends within community, or a partner, or both?
Both, but predominantly for me, I'm starting to find the friendship component now, and I'm starting to figure out where that fits. But predominantly for me, it would be in partnership.
Unreal.
And I guess my challenge is because I have that insatiable need, and I am showing up in a lot of ways that challenges men.
Well, you could almost say from the outside it might even look like you're more in your masculine.
Yeah, definitely.
Would you say that you are?
I would say that I'm learning to be in what it looks like to have integrated masculine and feminine.
Beautiful.
Which is that I can step into that when I need to, but I can also step into the gentle graciousness when I need to.
Sure.
And that I can navigate between those, and I'm not ultimately in one or the other. And I'm not saying that I have mastered that by any means, but I am learning.
Which I think is a phenomenal skill. I mean, very quickly, I like to imagine masculine and feminine like a huge scale. And with each learning and experience and breakup, you know, if we're conscious of it, we're aiming to get closer and closer and closer to the center. And once we're in the center, we have the ability to swing either way. And if we need to be more masculine and more in that kind of, we're off.
You keep going.
Okay. Yeah, in that like structured, disciplined, actionable, go mode, we can do that. And then when we need to soften and relax and be in that more creative, flowy, compassionate. Yeah.
And Luke, my coach, put it to me the other day of like, because I often think about the balance part of like the pendulum going from like one side to the other and being in the middle. But Luke, my coach, the other day put it to me that what if it was doing like cycling around, and that was the balance, was that we were in constant flow and we could navigate that space with grace.
Totally.
And with understanding and with recognition.
We could go on masculine and feminine for hours. We've got to go. You've got a coaching call.
I've got a coaching
Real quick, we did it on part 1. Just for all those listening, can you just go through how we can connect with you one more time if men want to reach out for your coaching, and women for that matter? How all the ways that we connect.
Yep, so my business is Change Channel Coaching. You can find me at www.changechannel.com.au, or on Instagram and Facebook I am at change.channel.coaching. And same way of emailing me as well.
Amazing.
Yeah.
This has been the most phenomenal conversation, both part 1 and part 2. You're amazing. So glad that I bumped into you at MBS Festival. Wishing you all the best on your next chapter. I've got no doubt you'll crush it. And I even feel like you're going to find the most amazing, beautiful partnership ever, because you fucking deserve it and you're an absolute legend. And why wouldn't you? It's obvious to me. So all the best. Thanks so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and your knowledge. I've genuinely enjoyed all of this, and stay in touch. You're awesome.
Yeah, I've loved this conversation. I think it's so great. It would not surprise me if we do a part 3 and a part 4.
Yeah. It's never ending.
Yeah. But thank you so much for taking the time and for taking a chance on being really uncomfortable and pursuing what that looks like and investigating it more.
Always.
I appreciate it.
Yeah. Getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. It's my jam. All right. Go be awesome and assist someone else in bloody recognising their genius and their greatness. We'll chat soon, hey?
Thanks, Tom.
Much love. Thanks, everyone. You're the best. You. What the fuck?
That was so good.
Oh my god.
That was so good. I'm 3 minutes over. Maybe don't leave, because then I can't say goodbye.
Yeah.
Like, do leave if you need to leave.
No, I'll go. And how long did you call for? An hour?
An hour, but then we can go for a swim.
Yeah. No
Oh,
worries.
that was awesome. That was such a good chat.
Yeah, so good.
I loved that.
So good.
That was really cool.
Yeah.
Alright.
I'll be able to do stuff for an hour. Get on.
Okay.
I'll do.
To leave.